Hello guys, it's me, Reysious, and it's time for a new devlog. So I recently thought to myself, I love Dueling in Battlefront 2, despite all the bullshit and flaws the game has, which in some cases can really ruin your experience. So, since I've gotten a bit of game development experience, especially with real-time multiplayer game development, why don't I try to make something similar, or maybe even better? So that's how I got the idea to make my own 3D multiplayer dueling/fighting game. So my first thought was to just make some classic medieval sword fighting game, although that's kinda boring, isn't it? And games like For Honor and Mordor already exist, and I can't really do something Star Wars related either, since I don't want to deal with the licensing bullshit. So, since I was really into Greek mythology when I was younger, I thought I'd just make a game about Greek gods. So for some quick prototyping, I just copy-pasted my already existing game Drone Wars, removed all the scripts and stuff that made it Drone Wars, so it was basically just a core Unity networking game project with character movement and all. Then I went into Blender to just make a low poly prototyping character and create some very basic animations for prototyping as well. And it seems I'm already too stupid to do just that, since I somehow ended up with an inverted animation. After somewhat fixing it, I guess, I just stopped giving a shit and went into Unity to start working on some sort of melee hit detection. So to begin with, I tried to make a system that would allow you to attack and also block incoming attacks with the direction your camera is facing, basically. So I've never done melee hit detection before, and for some reason I thought raycast would be a really good idea. I mean, in the end it somewhat worked, but it really wasn't ideal. And I also quickly realized that prototyping in a Unity project from another game is also not ideal. So I made two new Unity projects, one for the server and one for the client. And I thought this was a nice chance to get started with Unity's new input system, and I thought it was unnecessarily complex to begin with, but I very quickly discovered it was just so much better than Unity's old input system. Like, it's so much easier to support like multiple devices like mouse, keyboard and controllers at once, and it even supports key binding and literally everything you need for a good input system. And with Unity's old input system, you had to do a bunch of tedious workarounds to get stuff like this working. I then implemented netcode based on Tom Wieland's networking and started working on camera movement. So Unity actually has something called Cinemachine, which is ideal for instance, third-person camera movement, which is exactly what I wanted to do. But once again, I was too stupid to use this tool properly, so I ended up making my own third-person camera script. And to be honest, it just feels way better to have your own script for it anyways. Now it was time to get started with basic character movement, and since I generally quite liked the movement in Battlefront, I tried to achieve something somewhat similar. So I made sure you could jump higher when holding the jump button longer, and then I accidentally implemented double jumps, or rather multi-jumps, I guess. You could pretty much fly with it. And something I really hate about games like, for instance, PUBG is that once you're in the air, you pretty much have no longer control over your character at all. So I added the ability to slightly adjust your movement direction while being in the air, just to make it feel a little bit more responsive. Kinda like in Battlefront 2 as well, actually. And last but not least, I also added the ability to dash. And when I first added it, you could actually do dashes mid-air, which was kinda fun actually, but might be a little broken. So I fixed it for now. So for now, I'm pretty happy with how the movement turned out. So I thought to get a better look of it, I'll download some characters and animations from Mixamo, since I was too lazy to get my ass into Blender, and my last attempt of doing this kind of stuff went pretty bad. So I thought Mixamo will do for now. But I quickly decided the Mixamo animations, at least the ones I found, really do not suit the movement and the game itself. So I decided to focus on getting the movement to work with the networking for now. And since I don't want people to be able to do this kind of shenanigans in my game, I decided to go for server authoritative movement once again. So the way server authoritative movement works is, instead of your client just executing your movement directly on your client, the client sends information about which buttons you're currently pressing through the server, and the server then calculates the movement based on that input and sends the resulting position back to the client. And this way it's pretty much impossible for hackers to manipulate their movement and create fly hacks or something like that. Now, there is one big problem with this though, and that is latency. So even with a relatively low ping, server authoritative movement feels extremely unresponsive. And that's obviously because when you press a movement button, you won't immediately see your character moving, because your client has to wait for the result from the server. Now, there is a way to still make this feel responsive, and that's called client-side prediction. So with client-side prediction, your client will execute your movement directly when you press a button and send your inputs to the server. The server then sends the result back to the client, and the client stores a history of its own calculations so it can compare the results with the server's results. And if there is a big mismatch, the client will have to do reconciliation, basically snap your player position back to your actual position, which the player then sees as rubber banding. And since the client is basically in the future, it also has to reapply all the inputs that are already sent to the server after snapping back the position. I hope this explanation made sense, but as you probably can tell, this is pretty complicated to implement. But I mean, I've done it before, so doing it again shouldn't be too hard, right?
Hey yo, what the fuck?
So after about a week of messing around, I finally managed to get a pretty smooth movement working with client-side prediction and reconciliation. Now if you watch really closely while jumping, you can notice a slight jitter, but I couldn't really get rid of that without breaking determinism. And it's not really that noticeable anyway, so I'll just leave it for now. And maybe I can just hide it in the future with some sort of visual interpolation or something. I then added melee hit detection, and this time I used box colliders instead of raycast, which are suited much better for this, I think. And the way this works is every player has a trigger collider sticking out in front of them, and once another player's hitbox enters the area of this trigger collider, that player will get added to a list, and if he leaves the area of the trigger collider, he will get removed from the list. And now if the player performs an attack, every player in this list will receive damage, unless the player is blocking and the attacking player is in their block angle. Now I'm once again not sure if this is the best way to go about it, since I've never really done melee combat before, but it seems to work pretty well, and also with some research I found out that many other melee games also do it like this. So I'm at least probably not horribly wrong with this way of doing it. I then quickly added some prototyping UI and name tags, basically just copy pasting the code from Drone Wars. I really have to optimize that code anyways though, since it's pretty buggy, but it will do for now, and this way I now can see health bar, stamina bar, and also for other players. And this really comes in handy for debugging. And now with a few bug fixes, I got the melee combat mechanics working so far, so I moved on with starting to work on the first ability. So I thought it would be really cool if everyone had the ability to pull and throw, for instance, rocks at each other, like as a base ability everyone has. And I actually found a tutorial for this, so I was able to get this working pretty quickly, but I made some modifications to make it way easier to pull objects, so that if you don't aim directly at an object when trying to pull, it will just pull the nearest object to the point you were aiming at. And if there's no object available there, it will just pull the nearest object close to you, if available. And now I just have to get this working in multiplayer, which is probably a way bigger challenge. But for now I wanted to start with making characters for the game and animations as well. So since I want this game to have photorealistic graphics, I thought, well, I'll have to improve my Blender character creation skills by a lot. So I started by trying to model a face. And since I didn't know whose face to model, I just tried to model Daisy Ridley's face. And well, if she sees this, which is extremely unlikely, but I'm truly sorry. But to be fair, for it being my first attempt of really trying to make a face in Blender, I think it could have been worse. A few days later, while trying to find some good videos on character creation in Blender, I stumbled across a software called Character Creator 3, and I have to say, it looked really awesome. So I gave it a try, and I quickly decided I would use this to make the characters for my game. I then decided which Greek gods to start with, and I decided to start with Zeus, Hecate, Poseidon and Hades. And I chose those because obviously Zeus, Hades and Poseidon are the big three and most known, and they also all have potential for really cool abilities. Like Zeus with lightning, Hades could have something with fire, and Poseidon water obviously. Which is gonna be challenging when it comes to visual effects and abilities in general, but I'm looking forward to it. And Hecate is basically the goddess of magic and ghosts kinda, so I thought she would make up for some really cool abilities as well. Now, if I succeed with this game, I'll definitely add more gods and goddesses, but for now I'll just go with these four. So I got my ass into Character Creator and made drafts for all four of them, but I still have to make my own clothing in Blender though, since Character Creator doesn't really have something that fits Greek gods or goddesses. So this is what I've made for now, and fun fact, the texture for the vest is actually a roof texture, because it turned out pretty hard to find a texture for Greek god armor kinda. So I just changed the texture color in GIMP, and I think it fits pretty well. And I'm pretty happy with the results. I'll have to see how it's gonna work out in Unity with animations and all though. I first have to actually create animations though, which is gonna be the next big challenge. But yeah, I think that was everything I have on this project for now. I have to say though, I'm really hyping myself up for this project. I have like endless amounts of cool ideas. But let me know what you think of this, and maybe even if you have some ideas for the game. And also, do you like Greek mythology? And if so, what is your favorite Greek god or goddess? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Quick side note on what's going on in Drone Wars before this video ends. So I actually did a few patches. Mostly bug fixes, but I also added shotgun tracer effects and finally different weapon sound effects. And I had to decrease the network send rate by a lot, since servers could actually not handle more than 4 players without everyone getting a 400 ping, 800 ping rather. And then kinda had to tweak the movement interpolation, since it turned out to not really be good, unless the send rate is like extremely high. And then I got some funny issues with the train. I think I tried to interpolate the wrong object once again, but it's fixed now. But actually the biggest problem was that this shit kinda messed up the lag compensation. Yeah, which I spent months on getting to work at all, and now it's kinda broken again. So yeah, fuck me. I think I was able to tweak it to an acceptable level though. Now, since I have the Greek mythology fighting game to work on, I'll kinda move Drone Wars into a background project kinda. I mean, I guess I will still update it every once in a while, at least until it's ready to get out of early access. Should it actually get some active players, I'll probably get more active on the development again, but for now I'll just focus on the Greek mythology fighting game. So I think that was pretty much everything for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!